Hey guys, Matt Bell here with Electric Violin Shop. We're going to sort of adjust one of these devices a wee bit there. Yep. All right. We're here for our weekly live stream. I usually start this thing out by playing something, but we are in a big hurry today because we got a huge topic today. We're talking about electric string ensembles. And I usually try to film like a short summary version of this ahead of time so that we can edit that down and get that on YouTube. And it took me 20 minutes to film what I usually try to keep it between 5 and 10 minutes. It took me 20 minutes just to get through like the short version of this. And that's without doing stuff like going, "Hey Ernesto, how's it going, man? ¿Cómo se va?" So, yeah, I have you deserve to be acknowledged for hanging out here. So, this is going to be, I think it's going to be a cool topic, but there is a ton of content here, and it's going to take me a long time to go through all this. Okay, so let's get started. Electric string ensembles. Electric strings are everywhere right now. Lindsey Sterling's got over 1 billion views on YouTube. Brian King Joseph from America's Got Talent is blowing up. Brian King Joseph was in New York like yesterday or something to light the Macy's, one of those big Christmas trees. Tyler Butler Figueroa, who's from right here in Raleigh, was just on America's Got Talent. He plays an acoustic electric, but he's plugged in. Mark Wood obviously has been a big deal for many moons. Black Violin just released a new album this week. Those guys are blowing up. What's up, Tara Dixon? Shouldn't you be practicing your Viper? What's happening, Raz? Thanks for tuning in. I keep sending people to Raz. I sent somebody to you today with another question, Raz. Somebody was asking about, gosh, what were they asking about? Something, they were asking about drum machines. I'm like, I don't know, I have a drummer. And Raz has a drummer too. Who lives with her, because that's usually what drummers do. They have to find somebody to live with. No, Raz's drummer lives with her, but yeah, she also does a lot of drum machine stuff. So anyway, yeah, so Lindsey Sterling, Brian King Joseph, Tyler Butler Figueroa, Mark Wood, Black Violin, Raz Palumbi, all these people are blowing up with electric strings. There's a ton of electric string visibility in the world right now. So a question that naturally comes up is, hey, why don't we put together an electric string ensemble? Could be a duo. Joseph, are you on your way over here, man? Come on, hurry up. You can be in this. You can be in this live stream. Just hurry up and bring a donut or something. So why don't we want to jump on this train of electric violin excitement or electric string excitement? And let's put together an ensemble of these things, right? So there's sort of two, what's the word I'm looking for? Two implementations. We'll use that word. And two implementations. One would be for teachers that we're interested in having teachers put together some electric string ensembles. We'll put those together. And I first want to talk to the teachers, okay? And then we'll get to the performers as best we can, but I want to talk to the teachers first, and then we'll talk to the performers about what's going on for them. So teachers, let's think about this. Why on earth would we want to put together an electric string ensemble? Okay. Well, besides the fact that kids are going to be more excited about electric strings, it's just, it's different, and it's hipper, and it's newer. And anything you can do to keep kids interested in playing and practicing, right? That's a good thing. It's my argument for Lindsey Sterling. There's a lot of purists that, she's this or she's that. You know what? Lindsey Sterling has convinced more kids to play the violin than, any teacher on the planet. Except maybe Rob Janoff. And Kyle, what's happening? Noah's here. Oh my goodness. All the cool people are here. I feel so honored. So yeah, it's anything that makes kids want to play, right? So if we start an electric ensemble, if that makes kids want to play, then let's get an electric ensemble together, okay? But from a practical standpoint, if you're trying to sell this to administration, we'll say, because my dad was a school budget director for years. Michelle Jones, man, everybody. My dad was a school budget director. I know what you guys are struggling with. You know, they always said my dad could pitch a penny until Lincoln screamed. And that's his job, you know. And then your job is to pry that penny out of his fingers. So if we're trying to sell this to administration, you can play louder. There we go. YouTube's back. Sorry, everybody. You can play louder than the acoustic string ensembles. That allows you to play bigger and noisier venues. You can play football games. You can play at basketball games. You can play at pep rallies. You can play in the cafeteria or whatever. So the more opportunities we give kids to play and the more chances we give them, Corey Zillish, the more chances we give kids to play, that's a good thing, right? So you can be louder than an acoustic string group. You can also be quieter than an acoustic string group. Acoustic strings, you know, they're not loud enough to play in a football stadium, but they're certainly louder than you want them in a in an Italian restaurant, for example, or if you're wanting to be in a retail space or something. They're like, hey, could you guys come over and play here? And you start playing. They're like, whoa, we can't hear to conduct business, and we're trying. You know, this is a business. So you will be able to play in venues where they need you to be super loud, and you'll be able to play in venues where they need you to be less loud. Okay, you have far more control over volume, both up and down, on an electric ensemble than you do in an acoustic ensemble. Okay, so the more places you can play, the more places you will play, and playing is good, because if I have to explain that, then we got a whole other set of problems. For effects, you can use, if you got an electric string ensemble, you can use effects. You can play with loopers, you can play with delays, with reverbs, with flangers, all kinds of fun stuff, right? So this allows kids to be more creative. Sorry, the seasons changed here in North Carolina and I'm dying. It allows you to have more independent volume control. If you're with a school, maybe you've got 8 violinists and 1 cellist, because that's what happens, okay? Well, you can turn up the cello and you can turn down the violins, and all of a sudden you've got a lot more control over your mix, right? What Tara's saying. The power from mixing and controlling gives endless possibilities. And like Corey is saying, if you guys are watching on YouTube, that's fantastic. All the cool kids right now are over on Facebook, and I'm going to start shouting out some names in a minute. I threw on my personal Facebook page yesterday, I think, said that I was going to be doing this live stream, and I had a ton of people chime in, and we'll go through some of the names and credits of these people so you'll know who some of this information is coming from. I honestly have only played in a couple of electric string ensembles throughout the years. I'm usually the only string player on a job. So, you know, I have to get a lot of education from the people who do this full time. And that's what I try to do. I do not know everything. So I have to ask the people who do. So when you're doing a live stream every week, you have to get educated every week on exactly what the heck you're talking about. So we can get louder than an acoustic ensemble. We can get quieter than an acoustic ensemble. We can use effects, which allows us to be more creative. We have independent volume control, which helps us balance things out. And we're going to have more interest, right? I mean, you know, whether it's fair or not, people are more excited about electric violins than they are about acoustic violins, unless you're, you know, in, Carnegie Hall. You're going to draw more people. You're going to have more visibility, and there's some technical component to this. If you're a teacher, you want kids to learn, and you want them to learn as much as they possibly can. Well, if they're learning about amplification, they're learning about effects, and they're learning about signal path, and they're learning about power distribution, and all these things, as things that they have to do in order to make this electric ensemble work, well, that's good. Learning is good. We like learning. Learning is muy bueno, okay? If you're going to do an electric ensemble in your school, and we get calls all the time here at Electric Violin Shop from teachers going, all right, cool, I want to put an electric ensemble together. Now what? I don't know. I know that much. I don't know anything more. What should I do? Well, the first question I ask is how many pieces do you want to have? How big an ensemble do you want to do? And Corey's got like 4,000 kids in his program. Corey, maybe you can chime in and say how many kids are in your electric orchestra. That'd be awesome. But I would say generally 2 to 5 is a fairly simple way to get started. If you want to try to outfit an ensemble of between 2 and 5 people, that's relatively simple to do from a technical standpoint. You try to get much bigger than that, you're going to have to be a freaking genius like Corey, or you're going to need some more help. So I'd say 2 to 5 is fairly simple. 6 plus starts to get more challenging. But you're going to need to know how many kids are we going to have in this ensemble, and roughly what instruments are they going to be playing. One of the main advantages of electric ensembles over acoustic ensembles is that you don't have to double up your parts in order to get loud enough. The reason there's 10 first violins in an orchestra is because one first violin isn't loud enough to fill a hall by himself. They got 10 of them because they're louder, okay? So, yeah, oh my goodness, Corey's got 45 in his electric orchestra. Rob's got 25. Yeah, my goodness. Corey, for those of you who don't know, and I'm gonna start calling these two names right away. Corey Zilish is in Louisville, Kentucky, and Rob Gianoff is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Both of these guys are total rock stars. They are middle school teachers. Corey has 45 kids in an electric orchestra, and Rob has about 25 in his rock orchestra. And Rob's deal, he's got, if you go to back in March of 2019, I did a live stream from Rob's place. You can see the amazing collection of instruments and stuff he's put together. Rob has a whole rock class where the kids are learning to play drums and basses and run sound and run lights and electric violins and Moog synthesizers and a whole bit. So Rob's teaching kids basically how to become rock stars in middle school, which I really wish I'd gone to his school. Where was I? Please follow those two guys. Please follow Corey and follow Rob. And if you got $5 extra in your pocket, send it to those guys because their programs could use it. Yes, and in 2021, I will be in your room in Louisville because you're going to need 100 security guys to keep me out of there. Okay, so we've talked about how many kids. You got to figure how many kids are going to be in your ensemble, right? And then that helps you sort of make some decisions. The beauty of an electric ensemble is you don't have to double up on parts, so you don't need 4 first violinists. You just turn that one first violinist you have up so everybody can hear them. So it does allow you to do bigger things with a smaller group of people, okay? So you don't have to have a huge group in order to do orchestral stuff. Now we got to start thinking about budget because you're asking about all the stuff these guys, 30, 40 kids. Does that cost money? Yes, it costs. Actually, it costs a lot of money. We can say that an instrument, a new instrument, you're gonna start about $600 for a violin and about $1,000 for a cello. You can spend a whole lot more than that, but just if you're putting a budget together in your head, think roughly $600 for a violin, roughly $1,000 for an electric cello. That's to get you started. You're also going to need to spend roughly $200 per kid for an amp. Like there are single channel amps that are roughly $200 and there are double channel amps that are roughly $400. Just as a ballpark, put that number in your head. Roughly $600 for a violin, $1,000 for a cello, and roughly $200 per kid for an amp, okay? You can save a little bit of money if you say, hey, let's use our acoustics, put some pickups on them, and we can plug them in, okay? That gives you some of the benefits of an electric orchestra, meaning you've got increased volume. You lose a little bit of the wow factor. You lose a little bit of the ability to use effects to the same extent that you would with a solid body. But you do solve a couple problems. You solve one of your monitoring issues, and we'll get into that. But if you've got an acoustic instrument in your ear, you can hear it. You've got a pickup, goes to the amp, it amplifies it out to the world. You have solved one of your monitoring issues because an electric instrument is not loud enough for you to be able to for you to hear it in a loud setting. So that's sort of a trade-off there. If you want to save a little bit of that $600 per violin or $1,000 per cello, you can work with some of the instruments you have. There are a few trade-offs, but pickups, let's say roughly $100 per instrument. So you can drop your cost quite a bit if you're going to use an acoustic with a pickup. Now, another one of the questions that we've got to answer is, are we going to use central control, or are we using individual amps? And there are pluses and minuses for each. If I want to, if I'm the teacher and I'm like, I want to have a soundboard in front of me, and if I've got 15 kids, I want 15 faders on here. I can turn Johnny up, and I can turn Susie down, and I can do whatever I need to do here. Then that is one way to do it. And then what comes out of that soundboard goes to a set of speakers, and that pipes out to the world. Okay, that works just fine, and a lot of people do that. Here are some pluses and minuses to that kind of setup. The pluses are the teacher has control over everybody's volume, and the teacher has control over overall volume. Okay, if you want to mute the whole thing and you want it all come to a screeching halt, you go whoop on the main fader and it's quiet, it's done. Okay, that's a really nice thing to have. You can expand. Once you own that system, you can add students quite a bit cheaper, right? So if I got another kid shows up with an electric violin, sure, bro, plug it in, we're good. We got one more kid, we're done, okay? There's more, let's see, what was I'm trying to read, I'm trying to read my notes here. You can record a little bit easier. You've got a main line out on your board, and you can just run out to your recorder, and you can record that ensemble quite easily. Okay, there are some drawbacks to doing it this way. One, you got Cable City. Okay, for every one of those kids, you've got to get their signal from where they're standing to your board somehow, some way. We can talk about wireless. Corey does his with wireless. You're probably not going to start that way. You're probably going to start with cables, which means if you've got 10 kids, you've got 20 cables, because we don't want to run 1/4-inch cables 100 feet to get them to the board. You're talking about an instrument cable from the violin to a DI, and then an XLR cable from the DI to the board, okay? We can talk about that a little bit if you guys want to know. And a 1/4-inch cable is... It's one of these guys right here. Looks like this. Plugs into the instrument. The problem with these is you can only run those so far before they start to lose signal. Okay, so really past about 20 feet, it's not good. They start losing signal strength. So you want to run that to a DI box. And what a DI box, it's called direct inject. But it's a little box that converts your 1/4-inch signal to an XLR or a mic cable. I don't have a mic cable sitting here, but it's the one that's sort of round. It's got 3 little pins in it. That's a balanced cable, and you can run those things hundreds of feet without losing any signal. So violin or cello, 1/4-inch cable to a DI box. You can buy a passive DI for about 30 bucks, and then a mic cable to run to your board. So it's going to be Cable City. You can have a bunch of cables, you're going to have a bunch of DIs, you're going to have a bunch of mic cables. It's a bit of a pain, okay? So that's a minus to having central control. Monitoring is going to be an issue. Like we said, kids that are playing electric instruments, those things, once the drums come in or once everybody starts playing, they are not going to be able to hear themselves underneath their ear. Something's got to be piped back to them somehow electronically so that they can hear. Maybe you can set up some wedges that you've got PA for the crowd to hear. Maybe you got some wedges on the ground piped back at the kids so that they can hear that. If you only have 1 kid per part, that's not bad at all, okay? If I have more than 1 kid playing a part, okay, here's an issue with electric instruments. If I have 2 kids playing first violin and they are listening to themselves out of the same speaker, then if one of them is flat, they will not know which one of them is flat, because I hear an in-tune note and an out-of-tune note coming out of that speaker, and I don't know which one of those is me. So either they're going to assume I'm the one who's in tune and they're going to keep playing, which means whoever's out of tune is going to continue to be out of tune. Excuse me. Or they'll both assume that they're the one who's flat and they start adjusting up, and all of a sudden your pitch center starts moving and they're chasing ghosts trying to play in tune. If you have one kid per part, then they can use monitoring like that. They can hear what their part is. They know that, hey, that's a B natural. I'm playing a B natural and it's flat, so I need to adjust that up. Then that's not a problem, okay? But if you have more than one kid playing a part and they're trying to share monitors, that could be a huge problem, okay? So monitoring becomes an issue if you've got centralized control. And you need an engineer. Somebody has to know how to run that board. It could be you, the teacher, that's fine. If you know how to do that, that's great. But what if you're busy conducting or doing teacherly things? You teachers know this. You know, sometimes, you got other stuff going on. You're probably going to need somebody else in your organization who knows how to run that board. And that's fine. We can teach people. You know, we are teachers. But it's an extra person who kind of has to know things. And it's always going to be, whenever you need that person, they've got a mathathon or something to go to and you don't have them that day. So, that is another downside to having central controls. Somebody has to know how to drive that board, okay? So there's pluses and minuses, and you can decide which one works for you. I just want you to go into it with your eyes wide open. If we decide to have individual amps, there are pluses and minuses to that too. So let's talk about those. If you guys took an economics class, you know about fixed cost and variable cost, right? So fixed cost means there's a certain amount of money I spend every month, whether I go out to dinner or whatever. Imagine that's like your rent payment. It's the same every month, whether you travel or you go out or it's Christmas or whatever. So we think about central PA, the amount of work it takes to set up that PA is a fixed cost. I have to spend that much work, whether we're playing for 5 minutes, whether I'm playing with 300 people, with 2 people, or I'm playing for 4 hours. That's a fixed amount of stuff to haul. Okay, David Guskin, how's it going, man? Yeah, we'll talk about that too. Thank you. So there's a fixed amount of gear that has to be transported if you have central control. If you have individual control, individual amps, then that's more like a variable thing. If you've got 2 kids, you got 2 amps. If you got 20 kids, you got 20 amps, or if they're sharing 10. So it scales a little bit differently. Okay, so each kid, the reason people have 2 arms, this is why, from an evolutionary standpoint, the reason people have 2 arms, so you can carry an instrument in one and an amp in the other. That's why. If you didn't know, now you do. So each kid can carry an instrument and an amp, and if you have separate amps providing your sound rather than a centralized PA, that's the whole thing. Kid, instrument, amp, we're good, okay? So there's no central gear, there's no central stuff. If you have a big group, you have a lot of stuff. You have a small group, you have a little bit of stuff. And your monitoring problem is solved. Your kid's got an amp sitting there, he can hear himself out of his amp or her amp or their amp, whatever, okay? Each individual player can hear their individual amp and they'll know what's going on. What's up, Kyle? That's a good thing. Minuses on individual amps is each additional player is going to require an additional amp. So if I want to go from 10 kids to 12 kids, well, I have to buy 2 new amps or 1 new 2-channel amp. It's harder to control the overall volume. I'm just going to have to tell, okay, everybody turn your amp down 2 clicks or whatever. Or I'm going to have to say, you turn up, you turn down, you turn off. Okay, so you have less control over volume and balance. And you're going to need a ton of power drops. If you're playing on a stage, you got 10 kids, 10 amps, you're going to need a place to plug in 10 amplifiers, okay? So that's a minus to having individual amps. I hope that's clear and I hope everybody understands. If you have questions, you can always holler at me, you can holler at Corey, you can holler at Rob. Guys like Kyle are experts. There's so many people. If you're on the Facebook side, you'll see all these comments just pouring in. There are so many knowledgeable people on this thread right now. You can hit up any of those people and they're super knowledgeable. They can help you. And just any of these guys, just call them at home. You can find their home phone number, day or night. They don't mind. Sorry. Yeah, Corey will help you. He's a great guy. So if we decided we're going to do an electric ensemble, okay, get it. I get it, Matt. These are things I want to do. Let's talk about maybe a couple of advantages to having an electric ensemble that you might not think about ahead of time until you have one. One unexpected advantage is that you can have more productive rehearsals. Yes, this is true. When I'm playing in Mark Wood's rock orchestra every year, when I get a chance to do that, one of my favorite weeks of the whole year, you can, when Mark goes, all right, cellists, I want to work on this part right now. Everybody else, turn your violin down, turn it off, turn your volume knob off, and you can sit there practicing the part that I'm going to get to you next, okay? You guys, cellists, I want to work letter C, violinists, turn your volume down, you practice letter D because you're next. Okay, so we can sit there basically silently practicing while he's working with the cellos, and that time that he's working with the cellos is not wasted for everybody else. So we can multitask, okay? Another advantage is that you can have quieter rehearsals. How many band directors and orchestra directors have caught crap from people like during the end of year testing? They're like, hey, I know you guys have a concert and everything, but we have kids that are trying to take a math test, and you guys are stinking loud, and they can't hear when you're down there playing Holt's Planets, for 6 hours at a time. You can actually, you're like, hey, no problem, we can just turn down. If you've got an electric orchestra, you can just turn everybody down, and then you're not bothering anybody, and you can practice quietly. You can have multiple small groups in your room practicing all at the same time. You can say, okay, we've got 4 quartets in this room right now. You sit in this corner, practice, you in that corner, practice, you in this corner, practice, and it's not, you don't have like cacophony. It doesn't sound like tackle football in there. It's like everybody, you can actually think like a human being, and it's not this deafening roar of nonsense, okay? So you can have more productive rehearsals, you can have quiet rehearsals, you can do multitasking in the room. There's a lot of advantages to having an electric orchestra, an electric ensemble. Let's talk about disadvantages because, let's be honest, there are disadvantages to having an electric ensemble. There's a lot of gear. If you've got an acoustic quartet, they open their case, they get the instrument out, they sit down, they're ready to play. With an electric quartet, well, we got to get cables, we got to get amps, I got to find a place to plug this in, I turn it, oh, that's too loud, I got to turn down. So it takes a little more time, it's a little more gear, there's a lot more power requirements, there's more setup, and it costs a lot of money, okay? It's just, that's one of those things, the amps cost money, electric instruments cost money, because the thing is, it's an add-on, right? Because your kids are going to play in an acoustic ensemble. The electric thing is going to be one of those things that they also do, which means that it's twice as many instruments. There's some, there's amps, there's effects, there's all that kind of stuff that is extra money. Corey and Rob can both talk to you about ways that you can raise that money. I'm trying to get these two guys to put together a tour where they go around the country and teach directors how to do what they're doing. But that would, that'd be fantastic if Corey and Rob could get together and do a tour and do in-services around the country and teach people how to raise the money that it takes to do the things they're doing. That'd be wonderful. Okay, let's talk about instrumentation. If let's say if you're wanting to do a string quartet thing, because there's tons of literature out there for string quartets. Your standard traditional string quartet is 2 violins, viola, cello, right? However, what if I decide that I want to do this thing with 5-string violins? Because 5-string violins are a thing, believe it or not, two-set. So 5-string violins are a thing. A 5-string violin is a 4-string violin with a low C from a viola in it. Well, if I have 4 5-string violins, they can cover violin parts, viola parts, and if one of these guys has an octave pedal, he can cover all the cello parts. So I have lots more options. And hey, if I've got a cello player, hey, I got 4 cello players, right? Well, maybe I throw a couple of octave up pedals on these guys, and hey, all of a sudden this guy's covering violin parts. So you have so many more options on what you can have with your instrumentation and still play literature that exists, okay? Because sometimes that's a problem. You go, well, I got this weird instrumentation. Where do I find literature for that? Well, the fact that you've got pitch shifting abilities, maybe you've got a kid who's got a 4-string violin. Well, you can pitch shift him. There are pitch shifting pedals that'll shift him down a 5th. So he can use that violin, and all of a sudden that thing is tuned like a viola, and he didn't have to touch the pegs or nothing. He's got himself a viola. So there are lots and lots of options with electric instruments that you don't have with acoustic instruments, okay? I'm going to flip through all these comments here in just a second and maybe address some of these, but there's one other piece of equipment I want to make you guys aware of. This is a Yamaha Session Cake. This is a very cool piece of equipment if you have an electric string ensemble. This is designed for doing practice, but you can also use this for performance if you want to. You can daisy chain up to 8 of these together, okay? This is a personal headphone amplifier, but like I said, you can daisy chain 8 of these together. So say we've got a 6-piece, string ensemble. I can have 6 of these, and each person plugs in. You use the little cable to daisy chain them together. What's up, Harlow? And then I can control, this is my input gain. It says input, so this controls how loud I am going to everybody else. I can actually turn myself up and down in the mix, only in my headphones, but not in everybody else's. I can turn my headphones up and down, and I can control pan. So that does affect everybody else, but I can say if we want to pan this thing, I can say, okay, one guy's here, one guy's here, one guy's here, one guy's here. Now we've got a nice stereo image of this ensemble, and each person has one of these. Nobody who doesn't have headphones on is hearing hardly anything, but this whole thing ends up being like a set of personal mixers that is a really, really cool little device. So those of you who have electric ensembles or want to have electric ensembles, think very hard about picking up a number of these, one for each player, okay? All right. I do also want to acknowledge a bunch of the people that contributed to the information I'm giving you guys right now. Matt Vanicoro is Mark Wood's keyboard player. He's one of the faculty members at the Mark Wood Rock Orchestra Camp. He's with Ask Audio Magazine. He's got Vanna Studios. That's actually who's mixing my solo project right now. Matt Vanicoro is an amazing resource. He's available on Facebook. If you guys find Matt, he knows everything about everything. If you can plug into the wall, he knows about it, okay? David Wallace, who's head of the string department at Berklee College of Music in Boston. David contributed to here. Kyle Pudence, who's here with Reignite Strings. Rob Janoff is with the Rock and Rhythm Project, and he's got an amazing TED Talk that if you want to learn a lot about a lot, go look up Rob Janoff's TED Talk. Mark Wood with Electrify Your Strings and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and if I have to tell you Mark Wood's credentials, then you probably aren't here anyway. Rachel Grace with Saga Strings out of LA. They play all over the world. Rachel contributed some information here. She's fantastic. Corey Zillish, who's with the Westport Orchestra and one of the most knowledgeable guys there is about putting together an electric orchestra. Michelle Jones with Violectric. She plays with Wayne Newton. She contributed some stuff here. Cremaine Booker, who's the principal cellist with the Nashville Symphony. He also plays with Black Violin. He plays with Carrie Underwood. He does a bunch of film scoring. Cremaine contributed a bunch of information here. Jesus Florido, who's an amazing solo player, played with Page and Plant. You guys really should follow Jesus if you don't. Lance Utes, who plays with Epic Unplugged. Jared Burnett, who was with Cirque du Soleil and has his own stable of musicians that he works with out of Orlando. All those guys contributed here. Follow all those people. They're incredibly knowledgeable and super, super helpful. Yeah, Kyle, excellent. 5-string cello makes a killer bass as well. Very true. I'm going to scroll through. Michelle likes the central mixer. It's true. Michelle is in a, if you guys don't know who Vioelectric is, they are based out of Orlando as well. They play all over the world. And it's an electric string. I think they do duos, trios, quartet, and even I think they've got a quintet as well. They have this amazing production where the instruments all have LEDs. The LEDs are all controlled from a central location, so their instruments are part of the light show. And you've seen, I'm sure you guys have seen the, you know, the string quartets where it's like, hey, you know, we just want a bunch of good-looking people to come in here and play, and they can sort of kind of maybe play a little bit, but they look good. Michelle's group and Saga Strings, Rachel Grace's group, these are actual musicians. It's a crazy thing. Like, you want music, you're going to hire an actual musician. Yeah, they're actual musicians who can actually play, and they actually sound good. That's what Michelle Jones's thing is. It is good to understand the tech, for sure. David Guscott, that's he's here. He made this beautiful, hold this thought, he made this beautiful double neck violin that one of you guys should buy. Can somebody please just buy this today? Christmas is coming up. Buy this thing. It's like $4,900, almost nothing. 2 instruments for the price of 1. David Guscott and a number of other people, Yamaha violins, bridge violins, and then there's a couple of Auroras. They have onboard headphone amps. So a kid, and what Corey's doing with his deal, and I'll tell you about that in a second, if you've got the onboard headphone amp, you can run a, you can just stick a little monitor in one ear, and you can hear yourself, and then the other ear can hear everybody else, okay? So that's an excellent situation. Corey's deal, and I'm sure that he has said this in his comments, what Corey does is each kid has a fanny pack, and those are coming back in. So, hey, there you go. The kids are, it's functional and cool-ish. The kids have a wireless transmitter in their fanny pack, but the signal comes out of their violin into the fanny pack. The fanny pack not only wirelessly transmits their signal to the board where Corey can mix it, it also has a little headphone amp in it that comes back to their ear, and each kid can hear himself, herself, and then so can the world. So that's a good thing. If you want to know how Corey put all that together, you can ask him. I think he's got a video on that, and there's a link in here somewhere. Wireless is a great way to teach movement while playing. That is very true, Michelle. Let's see, Corey's got a lot of stuff here. David, Kyle, all those guys. So much good content here. Please, normally I will tell you as life advice, don't read the comments. If you're flipping through Twitter and you want to maintain your faith in humanity, just, God, don't read the comments. Completely disregard that advice right now. If you're going to be flipping through this video, please read the content. The comments, these people are geniuses. Sound checks are not rehearsals. Very true. Yes. Okay. So if you guys have questions about this, if you're trying to put together an electric ensemble and you're like, okay, I think I know a little bit more now than I did, but I don't have all the information I want, call us. We are happy to help you. Call Rob, call Corey, call Michelle, call any of these people. Hit us up on social media or whatever, and we can give you advice on how to do this. Like I said, I haven't personally played in a lot of these, but I am also a sound engineer, so I do deal with a lot of this stuff. Oh, one thing I did want to talk about, amps. We talked about that, you know, I got one kid, one amp, okay? That's a great solution. If you've got a single input amp, each kid has his amp, each kid has control. There's another way to do that. There are 2 input amps. So you can have an amp that has 2 inputs, and then, like, you know, you got stand partners, they just both plug into one amp, and that amp, you know, amplifies both of them. The advice I would give you is don't let those people, you shouldn't do it with stand partners. That's a horrible idea. If you're an electric ensemble, you're probably not using music stands, because music stands are for, you know, anyway. You should actually know your music. Weird. Yeah, if you got 2 first violinists, which I'm not sure why you would anyway, but if you really want 2 first violinists, don't plug them into the same amp, because they're not going to know which one is out of tune and which one's in tune, okay? So you can have a first violin and a second violin share an amp. That'll work just great. And then you only have half as many amps. So let's talk about amps that I like. If we're talking about, you got two options on that. So once you decide if you want a single or a double input amp, then you got to decide, do I want one that I'm going to plug into a wall, or do I want a battery powered amp? If I've got battery powered amps, it cuts a lot of my technical requirements down a lot. However, battery powered amps are more expensive because, you know, batteries. So there are a number of amps out there. The amp that I take out to Mark Wood's camp every year is the Bose S1 Pro. It's got two inputs. It's battery powered. It's lightweight. I actually just stick it into my checked luggage and I wrap a pair of pants or something around it, and it just goes in my checked luggage. It's a fantastic amp. They're about $600, $599 each. They sound amazing. They've got the bottom end to handle cellos, got the top end to handle violins. You can even put a little bit of reverb in there. You've got high and low EQ. If you got the scratch to afford a bunch of Bose S1 Pro amps, you should do it. That'd be awesome. It's about $300 per kid, so it's not crazy expensive. And we said starting around $200 a kid with amps. You know, this one's about $300 a kid. You know, not like insanely expensive, right? Okay. The Bose S1 Pro is an outstanding amplifier, and the battery life is several hours. Like, you're going to be tired of playing before that battery runs out. Okay. The Roland Mobile Cube is another outstanding amp for high strings, violins and violas. I probably wouldn't run cellos through it. It's not nearly as loud as the Bose, but it has two inputs. You can run it off of batteries, and it's much more affordable. It's $179. Okay. The thing is, it's not very loud. So if you're trying to play at a football game, yeah, that's not going to work. It also eats batteries like candy. So you're trying to save money. You saved it on the front end, but you're going to be buying a lot of batteries. So the Roland AC33 could be a middle ground choice. It's got two channels. It's not rechargeable, but it's louder than a Mobile Cube. It's about $399, so you're back to about $200 per kid. The Fishman Loudbox series, that is one that if you're going to be plugged into the wall, that's a fantastic amp. They are, the $349 for a Fishman Loudbox Mini does have two inputs. They make a mini charge that has a battery. That's $525, so you're $270 per kid, and it's battery powered. Not a bad amp. And then they've also got an Artist, the Fishman Loudbox Artist, which is a much louder amp than the Mini. It's got two inputs. It's $649, so you're $300 and some dollars per kid. Boss Katana amps. If you are trying to save some money and you want some awesome effects, the Boss Katana 50 amps are $219. Only one input in that amp, so each kid's going to need his own. But it's a very, very high function amp for a pretty low price. It's roughly $200 per kid. If you need more power, you can get the 100-watt version for $349. And so again, we're back up around $300 per kid. So $200 to $300 per kid. You've got a number of options between battery powered, single input, double input, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I love this discussion that's happening right now. If you guys are on the Facebook side, I'm so excited seeing these comments come through. I'm really excited to see you guys connecting with each other. Wow. Corey and Michelle, yeah, that's a great connection. I'm glad to see you guys chatting. So yeah, if you have questions about how to put your electric ensemble together, we're happy to be one of the resources that you use. Obviously, if you're with a school, we can help you on pricing and all that sort of thing. Let's talk about instruments for a second. The Yamaha YEV is an outstanding instrument for $600-ish. The 5-string here, 5, yep, that's a 5. This is a very, very popular instrument for $500 or $600-ish dollars. Gives you lots of options. Also, there is a NS Design Wave Violin, which is also $600-ish dollars for a, this is a 4-string, but they also make a 5. The thing is with Yamaha, if you want the full orchestral suite, they do not make a YEV viola, although they do make the 5-string violin. I know it's not the same. They do make a 5-string violin. They don't make a viola. I think they made a couple of violas, and I think Martha Mook has all of them. Yamaha does make an SVV viola, which, so this is the SV. This is an SV 200. Yamaha makes this. They also make the SVV viola. I'm pointing at the one that's on the wall as if you guys can see it. They also make the SVC cello, so you can, and they make a bass, so you can get a full orchestral suite of Yamaha instruments. Okay, you can also, but they're a little more expensive because these are more like I think $1,300 for these. The NS Design makes a full orchestral suite of instruments, and they have 3 pricing tiers. Their entry level is the Wave, and then the NXT, and then the CR. They make a full orchestral suite. They don't make a wave viola, but they make a wave violin, they make a wave cello, and they make a wave bass. So you can get your full orchestral suite. They make an NXT viola. So you can get a full orchestral suite of NS Design instruments that all match. And you know, if you're trying to keep everybody matchy, you can do that with Yamaha or NS Design. If you are, if you don't need to match, then you can mix and match, and that's fine. It's totally fine to mix and match. It's not a big deal. Wood Violins makes a, let me grab one of these. Wood Violins makes a Stingray, which I think these are like $700-ish dollars. I've not memorized all my prices for the 5-string. And then Wood Violins also makes a cello, but the Wood Violins cellos, the Cobra cello, is wicked expensive. They sound fantastic, but they are wicked expensive. So yeah, you've got, this is an under $1,000 option on a violin. This is an under $1,000 option on a violin, and this is an under $1,000 option on a violin. And all of those, you can mix and match if you want. You want some Wood Violins, you want some Yamahas, you want some NS, it's fine. You can mix and match them. They blend just fine. All that stuff is available. Yeah, so if you guys have more questions, I'm so excited seeing all these discussions. If you guys have more questions, jump in the comments section on either Facebook or YouTube. And yeah, this is a lot of fun for me. So I hope it's been informative for you guys. And if you have more questions, give us a call and we will help you put together your electric string ensemble. Boom. Y'all have a great day.